Hello and welcome back to News Kids Can Use, a show about all the weird, wacky, and straight up strange things that have been making your grown-ups freak out about the news lately. I'm Emin Rogers.
And I'm Tori Ogawa, and if you haven't heard, we have an email address, newskidscanuse@krl.org. So please send us an email or a voice recording in that email with your opinions or all the news that you want to hear about. We are excited to hear from you. So as we dive into some headlines, we have some catching up to do. We took a month off, so here are some headlines from the last month or so. First, 14-year-old Zaila Avantgarde won the Scripps National Spelling Bee on July 8th. She's the first African-American and the second Black girl to win the spelling bee. And it is also impressive because she holds 3 basketball-related Guinness Book World Records for the most bounce juggles in 1 minute with 4 basketballs, most basketball bounces in 30 seconds with 4 basketballs, and ties the record for most basketballs dribbled at once.
While we were away, we also missed a tragic event in Surfside, Florida, where a condo building collapsed and killed 95 people. They originally thought the death toll was going to be a lot higher, but luckily some people turned out not to be in the building that they thought were in the building, and then others, of course, were found and rescued. It's been 4 weeks of searching for survivors and also searching for the remains of people who we know didn't survive, and it has just been a really awful time. So the big question now is who knew what, when, and what's going to happen to make sure this doesn't happen again in the future.
And in other news, an Italian artist, Salvatore Garau, sold an invisible sculpture titled I Am. The buyer paid $18,000 and gets a stamp certificate and this invisible sculpture and a set of instructions that say to just display it in a private home in a 5 by 5 foot space, which is wild because they paid that much money for air. And my question really is, if I stole that invisible sculpture, would they ever know? Like, if someone took it, would they know? Would I get arrested?
Don't steal things, but this is a good time to announce my new career as invisible painter. My house is full of my invisible paintings, and if you're interested in seeing them, too bad, you can't. They're invisible. Summer means a lot of things. Hanging out in the sun, in your sunglasses, iced coffee or other iced beverages, fresh fruits and vegetables, and summer learning.
Now, if you were doing summer learning and you read your 10 hours, it is August, so you can come to the library and get your prize, which is a book. There are some other choices, but you get a free book to keep forever. It is yours. Now, if you read 100 hours, I'm not going to show you because I'm almost done, but if you reveal that secret picture there and get your 100 hours, you get the coveted 100-hour reader t-shirt. Woo! So get down to your local library at Kitsap Regional Library and get your t-shirt or free book. And adults, you get prizes too, so come on down and get your summer learning prizes.
A lot of what's been going on in the news is stuff that we've already talked about on other episodes of this show. So we thought we'd go back and touch base with some of the things that we've already been talking about. And the first thing is that COVID is coming back. The Delta variant, which is now the main variant in the US, is super duper spreadable. And a lot of people, mostly unvaccinated people, are catching it and spreading it and getting sick, and rates are going through the roof, which really sucks because that means that everybody, even people who have been vaccinated, has to be extra careful to make sure that we protect all the unvaccinated people, which does include all the kids under 12 years old, which is you.
Now, something else we've talked about is the Olympics, and they are actually happening in Tokyo, Japan this summer, going on right now. Now, we've talked about the games a lot and if they were going to happen and all, but we also talked about athletics and how it was a force for good or evil. Now, one of the things was Simone Biles withdrew from the final individual all-around competition and the team finals during the Olympics. And she said that she just felt like she had the weight of the world on her shoulders and that her mental health was becoming a barrier for her to perform well, and that she didn't want to get in the way of her teammates earning a medal due to her screw-ups. And so in the end, she withdrew, and her team ended up winning a silver medal at the Olympics for the team competition, which is wonderful and exciting for the US.
Yeah, and I was talking about this with somebody recently. In gymnastics, a sport like that, if you're not mentally there, you're in real danger if you don't get out of the way and stop and just say, look, I need to tap out. And that is totally fair enough. You know what? A mental injury is also an injury. So if people need to take a break, they need to take a break. Fair enough. Fun fact, I just saw that if all the LGBTQ athletes who are competing in Tokyo 2020, 2021 Olympics were their own nation under rainbow flag, obviously, they would actually be ranked 14 in medal count overall, which is fantastic. That puts LGBTQ athletes in the top tier of athletes worldwide. And we already knew this, but it's just nice to have something to kind of prove it. And that was as of July 27th, according to NPR News.
In another topic that we talked about before is the January 6th insurrection or the attack on the Capitol. Recently, they started hearings with a committee comprised of 9 lawmakers, Democrats and Republicans, to investigate the attack on the Capitol. At this first hearing, 4 U.S. Capitol police officers gave their testimony along with some others, and it was just a very emotional hearing as they had to relive that day and share how frightened and scared they were at the violence that was occurring. And they just want justice.
Yeah, and one of the major points coming out of this was that things were a lot closer than we thought to going really, really badly. And if it weren't for the bravery of people like these officers who were scared to death while they were doing their jobs, we might not have the country that we expect to see in the United States today. For our last thing to talk about that we have already talked about before, the billionaire boys did in fact go to space. Jeff Bezos, who's an American billionaire, and Richard Branson, who is a British billionaire, both went on their own space flight companies to the edge of space and then came right back down. Richard Branson won the race. He got there first, but Jeff Bezos wore a bigger hat. And to touch on something we already talked about, that $28 million bid to make the last seat on Jeff Bezos's rocket, the person didn't actually end up going. They had a scheduling conflict, so they sent their 18-year-old son, and he went instead. But in a fun twist, 82-year-old Wally Funk, who was a woman who was supposed to go up to space decades ago, but NASA didn't really let that happen, she did get to go. So that's cool. Go for it, Wally.
On this week's Big Deal, we are talking about the heat wave and some wildfires that are occurring. The heat wave that happened at the end of June and the beginning of July in the Pacific Northwest and adjacent British Columbia and Canada experienced a once-in-a-thousand-year heat dome or heat wave. Now, Seattle reached a record high temperature of 108 degrees Fahrenheit, which is crazy for our state. Usually in this time of year, it's only around the 70s or 80s, so 108 is way higher. Now, heat and this heat wave can cause illness and even lead to death sometimes. And in the last month, there have been 125 heat-related deaths in Washington alone.
Right, and often the people who can't escape the effects of heat like this they live in poorer neighborhoods, or maybe they're poorer people, so they can't afford to buy an air conditioning, or maybe they're just not expecting to see these kinds of temperatures in this area. Like Tori said, it's not normal. And we're seeing a lot more of these kinds of extreme weather, whether it's really bad storms or extreme heat, happening all over the world and in the Pacific Northwest as well because of climate change, which is in fact already here. Some of the neighborhoods that got the hottest, which actually went over 108 degrees, got so hot partly because they create a pocket of heat around places that don't have much green space. So temperatures get really, really dangerous in neighborhoods that really can't afford to have that happen.
And this heat and climate change, this heat wave especially, caused some really dry areas, as Evan was saying. So this is the perfect environment for fires, which is where a lot of these wildfires that we're experiencing this summer have stemmed from.
Right, and when stuff is so dry, the fires burn even hotter. And this is something we're just finding out about, which is not very fun to find out about. Fires can get so hot and burn so big that they actually make their own weather, and they create thunder and lightning storms. And then those lightning strikes start more fires, which just makes the whole thing a lot worse and really hard to keep on top of if you're a firefighter, because we've never seen this kind of thing before. It's getting really intense out there. And not in a good way.
Currently, there are about 81 fires burning throughout 12 different states, including Washington, and Montana is experiencing some really bad fires.
Some things that you can do to help keep yourself safe from heat, from climate change, from fires. Keep an eye on those fire maps. That's really important. Keep an eye on the air quality. If it's really bad out there, you don't really want to be doing a lot of physical activity because you don't want to be taking those harmful particles into your body. And then also, of course, always drink water, wear sunscreen. If you can find somewhere cool to be, do it. It's really much better for you and for your family if everybody can just avoid the overheating issue in the beginning.
Well, thanks for welcoming us back from our cold librarian summer. We spent the whole summer indoors at the library, so it's good to be back. Thanks for watching News Kids Can Use, the show about all the weird, wacky, and straight up strange things that have been making your grown-ups freak out about the news lately. We'll be back in 2 weeks. I'm Tori Ogawa.
I'm Emin Rogers, invisible painter extraordinaire, soon to be invisible astronaut, owner of a giant invisible hat.